Now, we should be asking, does a study have external validity? So we're interrogating external validity. Can we generalize to other groups? So external validity is particularly important in a number of situations, especially when we're making a frequency claim. External validity is a priority. We want to know, to whom can we generalize? It's less of a priority in non-probability samples in the real world. So for example, if we want to simply talk about drivers who use the Waze app, we are going to, we may not be able to generalize to anyone else, but we are interested in what drivers using the Waze app are like. With the campus research, for example, not all families were going to allow videotaping, and they're probably somewhat different from the ones that didn't. And so, whether we can generalize, to the degree that we are able to, that they are different, there may not be extensive external validity. That's something that we should at least be aware of. As you're reading Yelp ads, for example, you might want to think about, who ends up, or what kinds of restaurants end up on a Yelp top 100 list. Who is going to write a review? Why are they saying certain kinds of things? So, what Oramus is saying here is that in general, the kind of people who are reviewing for Yelp are different from professional critics. So they tend to be younger, they tend to be more budget conscious, and they tend to prefer a good meal that's inexpensive as opposed to a fancy meal that's more expensive. And so as you're reading Yelp ads or Yelp reviews, you should be thinking, wondering what kind of bias there is to that and how might that influence what we're saying. Now, so what Aramus is saying is that Yelp is probably biased in some ways. And he's talking about external validity. Okay. And what we're probably doing is some self-selection here in this sample. Now, in general, we want large samples, because small samples, we're going to see a lot of variability across time, and across samples. So larger samples, as in here, so the first we had N of 10, here we have a sample size of 1,000. Our means are much less different, right? So we're able to get a much better view of what the true mean is. And you can see it's really shifting very little. One of the things we know is, as we're looking at margin of errors associated with sample sizes, that smaller or larger sample sizes have a much smaller margin of error, where small sample sizes, a size of 50, has a very large margin of error. And you'll see margin of errors, for example, when people are reporting poll results, when they're talking, in an election. We want a small and reliable, valid margin of error here. So as we're talking about interrogating external validity, what matters is a sampling technique, not the sample size. And that's what determines the external validity. Sample size influences how well we predict the true parameters of our population. Okay. And with that, I'm finishing chapter 7, and I'll see you as we discuss chapter 8. Take care.